Not on camera. We've talked about this. I have an alcohol trivia question for you. What is the world's best-selling liquor? I'll give you a couple of seconds to try to guess. Don't be shy, shout it out loud. Ready? Nope, you're all wrong. It is in fact soju. Soju is the world's best-selling spirit. And one particular soju brand called Jinro outsells Smirnoff, Jack Daniels, Johnny Walker and Bacardi combined. Just thought I'd start off with an interesting fact. It's one of those facts that surprises you a little bit, like when you discover that the world's most popular boy's name is Muhammad. So, that's your alcohol fact for the day. You're welcome. Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bat Country. When I first started seeking medical help to try to get sober back in 2019 or so, I was a real fucking mess. I had returned from this kind of 8-month-long journey, cycling alone from Shanghai back towards Europe, and everything had gone wrong on that journey. And my existing drinking problem had accelerated and got completely out of hand on that journey. And then when I returned to the UK, after being deported from Azerbaijan, I went to Croatia and was sent back home after a couple of months because my drinking was so bad there. And then I locked myself away in a remote cottage in Cornwall for 6 months and did nothing but drink. And then I started taking sobriety a little bit more seriously. And I was such a mess that my first diagnosis when I actually began to seek help was not alcoholism, but pseudo-dementia. That was my first diagnosis. Because I presented with all of the symptoms that are common in true dementia, except without the cognitive brain disease to go with it. I had the memory loss, the memory gaps, the mood swings, the inability to concentrate, the delusional thinking, inability to recognize people, misspeaking, like using the wrong words in the wrong context, all of that stuff that's familiar to dementia patients. I was presenting quite a lot of that stuff despite not actually having dementia. And part of the reason I got that diagnosis is because naturally I was an alcoholic, so I was lying to my doctor about how much I was drinking. So he gave me that diagnosis based on the information. Like, for example, I would disappear for days and weeks on end, and then come back and tell him I wasn't drinking. I don't know what happened. And he would sometimes like pencil it down as a fugue state. Like I'd be reported missing and appear in the news and then say that I was sober when it happened when I wasn't. And all of these kind of added up to a very unusual presentation, which he kind of characterized as pseudo-dementia. And that diagnosis and those early stages of figuring out how we were going to treat my alcoholism, it came with a lot of medication. So I thought it would be fun to pull my medical history, my real medical history from that period, and kind of share what medications I was on with you. This isn't everything. In fact, the medical report that I pulled was from 2018 when I returned to the UK to 2020 when I left again. So it's 2 years, and in that, it turned out to be 111 pages. I didn't want to print the whole lot. So I got the most important stuff here. In here is a list of everything I was diagnosed with and all of the medications, plus the emails between the various healthcare professionals. There's a lot in here about conversations about the nature of my brain injury, for example, between different specialists in London. And there's also a lot in here that I am going to have to burn after filming this. There is stuff in here that I'd completely forgotten about and which will go to my grave. That said, I thought what I would do, it might be fun to go through the medical history, specifically the medications that I was given, and would give them a kind of rating about how they performed for me, how they helped me, if they helped me stay sober to any degree. And because I'm in recovery now, I suppose it's only fair that I rate them in steps. So every medication is going to get a steps out of 12. 12 being the best, naturally. Can you tell that I've stopped writing scripts for these videos and I just make it up as I go along now? Now, also, I should stress that I am not a medical professional, nor am I an expert on the medications that I was taking. And even my own timeline about when I was taking what is slightly wonky due to the fact I was a suicidal alcoholic at the time. So forgive me if I trip over myself and I mispronounce things. But I'll try to be as honest as I can. And also, do go ahead and subscribe here if you're new to the channel. And if you would like to support Bad Country a little more actively, there is a Patreon. Check the description for all of the links, including a new one. Go check out the sober.shop. That's where you can now find Bad Country merch exclusively, as well as like a ton of other kind of sobriety lifestyle stuff. Lots of books there, some sobriety art and clothing and stuff like that. Anyway, let's get started. The first one is salbutamol, excuse me. Okay, so for a little while I had an inhaler. And I had that not because I was asthmatic. I don't have asthma or anything like that. It was a kind of a bit of maybe like a placebo. In that in the very early stages of sobriety for me, I was having panic attacks, like quite major ones, and was unable to breathe. And the doctor very kindly prescribed me with a salbutamol inhaler. And I used to take that if I felt an anxiety attack coming on. It was my idea, and it helped. While it did help, it may also have been a placebo. So I'm going to give this a sobriety rating of 4 steps out of 12. What is this channel coming to? Next up, acamprosate. Okay, so I was given acamprosate at 333 micrograms. I'm not exactly sure what the measurement is. So I'm just going to say mg from now on. So that was 333 mg, and I was taking 2 tablets 3 times a day. So 6 tablets per day, every day. And I got to be honest, in early sobriety, I had boxes of this stuff lying around. Like, I had a holdall full of it, like I was dealing it. I had so much of the stuff. But what it is I didn't know what it was at the time, so I didn't really get the benefit of it. But it's a little bit like naltrexone. It's an anti-alcohol abuse. It's designed to support your journey through long-term sobriety. So it doesn't do anything like, it doesn't help you with the symptoms of withdrawal or anything like that. Instead, it kind of over time works to reduce your urges to drink. It works, I'm told, by helping to rebalance your GABA glutamate systems, which are so badly disrupted in alcoholism. And what was it like to take? Well, I partially credit acamprosate for not having a solid poop for about 18 months. This is an episode about medication, so there's going to be some personal stuff in it, but it's either that or the propranolol that I was taking that was preventing me from having a solid poop for nearly 2 years of my life. But apart from that, I don't know how effective it was for me, because I didn't really know what purpose it was serving. So I'm gonna have to hedge my bets on this one. I'm going to give it 6 steps out of 12 on the recovery rating. I'm not sure if it was effective. It's hard to know. A quick Google before I started filming reveals that it's recorded as being between 1.5 and 2 times more effective than placebo for maintaining long-term sobriety. And for that reason alone, I think it's worthwhile. But for me, you're supposed to use acamprosate as part of a system, right? You don't just take it and then everything's cured. It's part of, like, you go to CBT and you go to therapy and you go to AA all at the same time. And that's how it's effective. And because in the early days I wasn't doing any of that, not really, I don't think I got the benefit of it. So 6 steps out of 12. Next, of course, is thiamine. Okay, so thiamine is vitamin B1, basically. And I was taking thiamine from the very first day that I picked up a prescription in sobriety to the very last day of taking medication, like 2 years later, 2 years plus. Thiamine was central to my recovery. It was the very first thing that I was prescribed, especially because I mentioned a head injury when I began to talk to the doctor. So thiamine is important because the depletion of it can lead to, well, a lot of very weird and unexpected consequences that can present as cognitive disease. In fact, it can lead to Wernicke's encephalopathy, the worst case scenario for most alcoholics, which is wet brain. Thiamine B2 is the substance protecting your brain from that kind of thing. So I was absolutely shoveling it down. There's another there's another B vitamin on this list, but I was taking B vitamins, prescribed and supplements, so much because I was so scared for my brain that I ultimately developed gout. Every single medication seems to, you have to take another medication, you have to stack everything in alcoholism, in recovery, so that one thing will give you side effects, so you have to take another thing for that thing's side effects, and then you have to take another thing for the third thing's side effects. And as a result, it's difficult to tell what's working and what isn't, because everything is stacked like so clumsily on top of each other. So rating for thiamine. I give thiamine the full complement. It gets 12 steps out of 12 because it is crucial for protecting your brain in early recovery, and just generally too. I still take it now, even though I started taking B vitamins like an addict. I'm such an idiot, and it ended up giving me gout. It's such an embarrassing thing to admit that you have, especially as a 40-year-old man. Gout is the kind of thing that you imagine 17th century Viscounts get. Like the Duke of Edinburgh has gout because he has too much brandy and deer meat. That's what it feels like to admit that you have gout in the 21st century. It sounds like a very old worldy disease. It's like saying I've got, scurvy or something. So next is propranolol, which I mentioned a moment ago. Okay, so propranolol is an anti-anxiety medication, specifically. It's non-addictive, but I took it addictively anyway. A little bit like the acamprosate. When I was being medicated, I just had boxes of this stuff lying around. And I took propranolol highly addictively. That is to say, like, the guidelines that I have here take 1 10 milligram tablet up to 3 times a day if needed for physical symptoms, no need to take regularly. But I was getting it in boxes of 84, and I was getting multiple boxes at a time, which meant I just had stacks of it. And because anxiety was one of my major issues before alcoholism, and certainly in the early stages of sobriety, I was packing that shit away. I was taking it like Tic Tacs. Before, during, and after every single event was 1 or 2 tablets of that. I must have been taking, 25 a day, something in that ballpark. I was just taking it habitually, even though it's not technically addictive. And while it's not addictive, I was taking them so much that I eventually made myself sick. So I found a note in one of these pages that says I was admitted to hospital at some point. I passed out, and I was discovered to be hypoglycemic and anemic. And the doctor's notes from the hospital point to propranolol as the reason why I was hypoglycemic. That's new to me. I didn't know that until today when I started looking over these notes. So there is, although it's not addictive, there are some drawbacks. So don't take it at the kind of addictive rate that I was taking it. Don't take it like it is a drug, basically, and you'll be okay. But the reason why I was taking them like that is because I knew that they had an effect, but I wasn't able to feel it. I wasn't able to feel it working in the way that some of the later medications I could feel. Like alcohol, I could feel. And I was trying to replace that. So how effective this was for me, I don't know. I hated it, I think. But I'm going to give it a 7 steps out of 12. Because I think it was effective. I think it did lower my anxiety. Even though it made me sick in the long run. but that was my stupid fault. Next up, though, is one that was much more effective. So next is lorazepam, 1 milligram as required. Okay, so the instructions for lorazepam were take half of one occasionally as needed. That is my guidelines for that. And I was getting them in boxes of 28 and, again, several boxes at a time. And my God. Right, so lorazepam is a benzodiazepine. And I'm often asked by people in the comments whether I had a problem with benzodiazepines after I got sober. I've always said no, until I've reviewed this information. Because I was taking them, like, just casually. Lorazepam is a benzodiazepine that works by kind of like indirectly reducing brain activity. And because it's a benzo, you can kind of feel it working in a way that you don't feel propranolol working. And I liked it. So when people ask me again, did I have a problem with benzodiazepines in early sobriety? I have to change my answer. Yeah, I was addicted to lorazepam. I just didn't know it until quite recently. I had no trouble quitting it in the end when it came to stop the medication. But I fear that's because, for reasons I might save until the end of the video, when I talk about what happened after this. So yeah, lorazepam felt a little bit like alcohol in some respects, which is why I felt this is one of the most effective ones that I took. I'm going to give this one 10 steps out of 12 because it did work. It was very effective for my anxiety, and it did contribute to me staying sober for a while as a result. But I would say that with the caveat, I was probably addicted to it because of the amount that I was taking. So yeah, 10 out of 12. 10 steps out of 12 for lorazepam. I much preferred it over propranolol, that's for sure. Okay, next up is risperidone at 500 micrograms on the dosage of take 2 daily, and I was being given boxes of 60 capsules at several boxes per time. Like I was getting like 3 months worth every time. So, risperidone. Let's talk about risperidone because this one I think might be a bit of an outlier. And I'd be surprised if many of you had been prescribed this for your sobriety. I'll explain why. I was given risperidone because, and I haven't really talked about this on the channel, not at length, but after my early experiences with delirium tremens, those hallucinations and delusions that I had, they didn't go away straight away. Some of the paranoia and the delusional thinking and even the hallucinations, they stayed even after the period of delirium tremens had stopped. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that in the early stage, for me, my delirium tremens experiences, the first couple that I had were so bad that, one, I was lucky to be alive, and two, the hallucinations and delusions continued into sobriety. Risperidone is a powerful antipsychotic. It's given most regularly to schizophrenics to control their hallucinations and their delusions and their impulsive, intrusive thoughts. That's why it's prescribed. And that's why I was on it too. Because I was... Look, I'll say it bluntly. My experience with delirium tremens was about as close as it comes to having schizophrenia without having schizophrenia. To the point where I think it was possible that I would have become schizophrenic if I'd continued. That's speculation, but that is why I was on this medication, risperidone. I had, for a long time, my relationship with reality was not normal. And most people take this one briefly, especially like if you're going through, it takes a little while to build up in your system, but if you're experiencing like a schizophrenic break or a psychotic break, which is what I was having, then you'll take it for a short period of time and then come off it. But I stayed on it for about 18 months. I was on this one the whole time. It was quite important for my recovery. This was one, it also has, like the way that it feels, because this is another one that you feel working. It calms your mind. It calms your inner dialogue a little bit. And I was taking it because I also found it more effective than propranolol for anxiety and also for depression. This was kind of what do they call it? A big tent, a big tent medication that kind of does a little bit of everything for me. But the main reason I was on it was for the antipsychotic purposes. Again, it's non-addictive, but I was taking it at addictive levels because I had so much of it and was using it as a crutch. Again, we'll talk about what happened when I stopped in a moment. I'm going to give this one 9 steps out of 12 because it comes with it's a heavy medication. It's not commonly given in these circumstances. And it does...
Hi, this is Ross, the host of Smells Like Humans. Each week we talk about the curious things that people do. Fans say it's like hanging out with your funny friends. If you like lighthearted conversation, personal stories, and a hint of psychology, chances are we are discussing something relevant to you, like relationships, dreams, phobias, weddings, work, cults, 100 topics and counting. Sometimes silly, sometimes serious, but always fun. Please join us, because no matter who you are, we all smell like humans. Please click the link in the show notes.
It feels heavy as well. Like it will give you stiffness in your mind, but also kind of in your limbs. It will flatten out. You don't experience any peaks or troughs of emotion after a while. It's very heavy going, but I think it was very effective in the way, if I'd been using it like as prescribed, it would have been very effective. But I was kind of overtaking it because I am a dumb addict, and I have to. If you put one medication in front of me and tell me it has it, I would get addicted to tap water. If you put it in front of me and said it had some quality that it doesn't, I would drink it addictively just because I'm an addict. Next up, another big one was fluoxetine at 20 milligrams, and I was taking 2 daily and being given 60 capsules per box, given like 3 months worth supply every time I needed it. Fluoxetine, yeah. Prozac, for those of us who only know it by the brand name. This is what the rest of my treatment plan was originally built around, was Prozac, to treat the major depressive disorder and the PTSD which I'd been diagnosed with earlier. The pseudo-dementia that I mentioned, that's sometimes a network of symptoms of major depressive disorder. That's partially why I was given that. Because all of the things that I described weren't just products of alcoholism. They can also be products of major depressive disorder, which was my main diagnosis. I hated fluoxetine. I hated it. And I had to go back on it long after this. I had another period of major depression, much later, and I ended up going back on it, and I hated it then too. There's a few reasons why I hate it. One is the fact that it's hard to exercise on fluoxetine. And like exercise was a big part of my recovery plan. And I'd gone into recovery fit. Despite the alcoholism, I was quite fit. And fluoxetine took that away. And not only did it took away my ability to exercise the way that I wanted, it also made me gain a huge amount of weight really quickly. And I couldn't get rid of it. I still haven't. So for those reasons, I hated it. For another reason is the sex drive. It completely assassinated my sex drive. I didn't start feeling the benefits of fluoxetine for about 6 weeks, but I felt the lack of sex drive almost immediately, and everything else that comes with it. And because, 20 years in the adult industry, Your sexuality becomes a major part of your personality, a big part of your identity. That was no small thing for me. It was no small thing to give up my sex drive. And I resented it for that. I hold fluoxetine responsible for a lot of the changes that led to me being not quite the person I want to be now. I was on it for about 2 years and then on it again. Withdrawal from fluoxetine was difficult for me. Not everybody struggles with it. For me, there was a lot of suicidal ideation. And I blame fluoxetine a lot for everything that came after this period of being heavily medicated. But it's hard to know what benefit it was for me. Was it all worthwhile? I don't know. I don't feel like it was. I give Prozac, fluoxetine, 5 steps out of 12. It probably helped me. I don't feel like it did, but it probably did. But at what cost? Next, one that I'm less familiar with. I had to look this one up to find out what it was. Promethazine hydrochloride at 25 milligram tablets. Take 2 a couple of hours before bed. So I had this under the brand name Phenergan, and I think that's what it was. And it's a sleeping aid for me. Whatever it is, I was taking it for sleep. That's why I was prescribed it, because I had terrible insomnia in the first year or so of sobriety, of that period of sobriety. I would give this one a healthy 10 steps out of 12. I really liked it. This one was truly non-addictive. I didn't even take it habitually. And it didn't come with any kind of sleep medicine hangover. So I'm on board with this one. 10 out of 12, I would take it again if I had to. And then finally, folic acid was another thing that I was prescribed at a rate of 5 milligrams per day, 1 capsule per day. This is another B vitamin, quite often prescribed because alcoholics will tend to be deficient in folic acid. I was also anemic, so this was helping with that. In fact, I actually passed out once in a shop and was discovered to have a potassium deficiency as well. But the treatments for those you don't need prescriptions for. This is just stuff that I had prescribed. It does feel weird that B vitamins are all prescription-based. But the truth is, taking them at the levels that they're prescribed, it will change your biochemistry slightly, which is why they're on prescription while most vitamins are not. Again, 12 steps out of 12 for folic acid. Just eat your roughage, eat your leafy vegetables and stuff, and you'll be okay. Yeah, okay, so that's kind of roughly everything that I was being prescribed during my very first attempt at sobriety, which means that on any given day in about 2019 or 2020, I was taking promethazine hydrochloride to help me sleep. That's Phenergan, the sleep stuff. And then acamprosate to help me rebalance my GABA glutamate systems to support my long-term sobriety. But then on top of that, I was taking the propranolol for anxiety, lorazepam, the benzodiazepine, also for anxiety and other things, then fluoxetine for depression, and risperidone as an antipsychotic, all at the same time. And that is, I think you'll agree, quite a messy prescription, isn't it? It feels messy to me. It's like this. I hated being medicated. I felt more of a failure admitting to depression than I did admitting to alcoholism. So the truth is, I hated being medicated both for the way it made me feel and also for kind of old-fashioned psychological reasons where I felt a little bit less of a man for being depressed. It was difficult both to get on medication and then it became difficult to stop as well. So I keep hinting that I was going to tell you what happened after I stopped this course. So the reason I stopped is because I left the UK in 2020. I went to Germany. And there I ran out of medication. I didn't have a system in place to get repeat prescriptions. So I just went cold turkey. And coming off the fluoxetine made me not suicidal, but not far off. There was a lot of sudden intrusive suicidal thoughts, and all of the stuff that I'd been suppressing for a long time suddenly all came back all at once, and a lot of my symptoms came back. And it was much easier for me to just pick up a bottle of vodka than it was to go and get fluoxetine prescribed by a German psychotherapist or psychiatrist. Because your regular doctor, your Hausarzt, won't be able to prescribe that stuff usually. You have to get it from a mental health professional. And it was easier for me to drink. So that's what happened, is that I stopped the medication and then I had a big fucking relapse, a number of them. And I went back to the bottle, bouncing around terrible relapses for about 2 years, and then got sober again. So in a sense, like, they must have been keeping me sober, you know? They must have been, because I was sober for that whole time, and then when they were taken away, I relapsed. But it made me question the value of being that heavily medicated for that period of time, because I never felt like myself. And in the end, this current stint of sobriety that I've got is completely without medication. I have found, as unfashionable as it is to say, that manning up a little bit and toughing it out a little bit, and also letting in therapy and understanding modern systems of understanding these things, and then also leaning into philosophical systems like Stoicism, that has been more useful to me this time round. More useful, I think, than the medication for my sobriety. Yeah. But I hope you enjoyed this little wander down my medical memory lane. If you did, please do subscribe and leave a like if you really liked it, or you would like to see me do more in this tone, or you found it particularly useful. Then go and offer some active support over on the Patreon. And don't forget to check out thesober.shop as well. See the links in the description. Thank you for watching. And as always, good luck out there.